when I started the program, I was 93 kilo and the photo shoot was 72. So 21 kilo within 16 months. Christine had a salt shaker and she goes, I'm going to hold the salt shaker in one hand. If you pick the salt shaker, that's to go and work with Johnny. If you pick the hand without, that's the civil service. And I was like, this is nonsense. That's not going to work. I want to, weigh this up, look at the pros and cons. I'm very detail orientated and I want to have it all this way. And she's like, just try it.
Welcome to the Unstoppable Podcast with your host, Johnny Pearce. In this podcast, we are going to cover all you need so that you can develop unstoppable confidence and build an unbreakable mindset. And we will make sure that everything you listen to is unforgettable. We will dissect the lessons from the people you want to hear from, and you have access to this completely free of charge. And if you like it, don't forget to share it with your friends, and I will see you on the inside.
Welcome back to episode 22 of the Unstoppable Podcast, and I'm incredibly excited today. This has been an episode that's been a long time coming, and I'm here with Mr. Matthew Jackson. Thanks for coming. We have been working together for over 4 years now, believe it or not. So Matthew originally started as a client. We're going to showcase and share that story, and he's now been working full-time in the program for the last 4 years, which has been a great journey. So have you enjoyed it?
Yeah, it's been good. It doesn't feel like it's been 4 years or over 4 years now since coming on board as a client success coach. Never mind the 16 months prior to that. So it's flown by really.
It's been a good journey. You've stuck with me anyway. You haven't annoyed you too much. And brief intro into you, who you are, and what's life like outside of work, obviously.
Yeah, so I'm 31 now. Again, that doesn't feel real either, but I'm 31. I'm married, and outside of work, a lot of my time would be taken up with football, which again, I'm sure we'll probably touch on at some point throughout. So I manage Monaslane Football Club in the Mid-Ulster Intermediate A, and have been there as in a management role for the last 10 years now. So progressing up through, which again we'll probably talk about a little bit more. But I equally enjoy obviously now the gym, well fitted in.
Nice.
And I enjoy the outdoors as well. So a lot of things that I've done have been focused around achievements rather than, so I like having something that has an end goal to do. So the likes of the mountains have been good, and just trying different challenges and sort of being active outdoors really.
And you love a holiday?
I do enjoy a holiday. To be fair, that's a big factor in it. Thankfully we're not too bad today weather-wise down here, but the seasonal depression of the 9 months of the year where it's grey and overcast here gets to me. So I do enjoy getting on holidays throughout the years as well.
And I say Matthew's worked in the program for over 4 years. He's probably worked a total of 1 year by the time we factor in all the holidays and the trips he's been in. But obviously, outside that, when we first met, let's take us back to then and how that came about and what then led you into the program and stuff.
Yeah, so at the time of first reaching out, so it was 2020, the first lockdown, and you had introduced and started the Kickstrong program at the time, which was targeting footballers who during lockdown and over COVID weren't able to carry out their normal 2 nights a week training, match on a Saturday, whatever it might be. So you had started that program specifically for footballers who needed something to keep them ticking over the sort of lockdowns and COVID period. Obviously, I wasn't a footballer, I was a manager, and I remember reaching out saying, would it be possible for me to jump in on this program? It's the kind of fitness. I did play football until I was sort of 20-ish, through injuries and thereabout, or with injuries throughout that. But I remember reaching out and asking, like, I know it's for footballers, but I kind of like that side of training. Would that be something that I would be able to jump in on as well? And I think at that stage we probably didn't really know each other. Obviously, I was managing our reserve team at that point, and you were playing for our first team, so we would have probably known of each other, but not really, in any great personal level at that stage. But that was really where it all started, and how I reached out was just when the Kickstrong program opened up.
And yeah, you've been on an awesome journey since that. It's been incredible. You've ticked off loads of targets. I would say Matthew's the fittest football manager that has ever managed me. Often people associate football managers with a beer belly and not doing much exercise. Matthew's probably the opposite of that. And I think there's also lessons within what Matthew's just said. When you reached out, it was probably the what ifs, the buts, and the maybes. And often when someone's reaching out, even now, there's conversations that go on in their head. Will this be the right fit for me? Will I be able to do this? And you simply ask the question, and here you are today. It's a simple message that can change the trajectory of your whole life, and that's ultimately what it's done. And the reason I brought Matthew on, and we'll touch upon that, but he possessed all the traits that I wanted within someone that was going to be a part of the team, that was going to be a leader in the group, for the clients, that was going to be an inspiration. Because I remember you did that Kickstrong program, and I don't think you missed a beat. You didn't miss a workout. You showed up to everything that was on offer, and I had cherry picked you out of that group, being like, this is the guy that implements, that works hard. And even back then, after probably a couple of months, I thought to myself, if I was ever in a position to bring someone on full time, you would be the person. When you joined and went through that journey, what was the biggest difference that it made? How did it impact you, and what results did you then see? So take people on the whole journey, take them from Kickstrong to then all the other things you've achieved.
Yeah. And I would say the journey probably began around 5 months prior to actually starting with the Kickstrong. So, and I can still vividly see the image of me. It was at a friend's wedding, and I remember looking at that photo. I think it was September, October in 2019, and I knew at that stage I need to do something here. Like I wasn't happy with how I looked and how I felt then off the back of that. So I knew for probably 4 or 5 months that I wanted to do something and needed to do something. I probably dabbled a little bit in those 4 or 5 months myself, but never really stuck at anything, never really sort of got fully into it. And I was probably waiting for the right opportunity. And then when the Kickstrong came about, it just sounded like something that would be a bit of me. So I reached out, and I'm somebody who, if I'm going to commit to something, I'm in it 100%. And when I, signed up to the Kickstrong, I wanted to make sure that I got everything out of it, and I committed to it. And as you said, never missed a workout. And I was so locked in. And, initially when I joined, having come from a sporting background and studied sport and had gym instructor's qualifications, but hated the gym. And for the first, I think, 8 months of being on the Kickstrong program, now some of that was due to lockdowns and different bits and pieces, but I never trained in the gym. Everything was from home. And that was more of probably gym anxiety and not really wanting to go to the gym, didn't really enjoy that side of things. Then it was about January time, I think, that in 2021, that I'd said, okay, I still enjoyed the home workouts, but at that point was probably maybe as far as I could take it. And I said, I'll stick my toe in the water. I'll try the gym and see what I think. Worst case, I can always revert back to the home workouts. And I would say 3 weeks down the line from that, didn't want to ever do a home workout again, which
Yeah.
was baffling to me with how I enjoyed them sort of prior to that. So from there, that sort of allowed me to kick on and sort of enjoy the gym. And I would say it was probably a few months after that that we then looked towards my first sort of big achievement, if you like. Not something that when I come into the program as a client that I ever sort of planned to do, but we then looked at we're maybe in shape to do, or getting towards the shape that we could look at doing a photo shoot. And I remember you saying to me, would that be something you're interested in? And I hadn't ever given it much thought. It wasn't anything I'd planned to do, anything I'd really wanted to do. But I remember thinking at that stage, why not? You know, I'm getting close to that sort of position, and why not give myself something to focus and work towards? And equally, it'll be something that I'll always be able to look back on and know that I was able to achieve. So that was probably um the first big thing that we worked towards, and within that time frame, then that was 16 months from starting the program, and again, 8 of those being home workouts. So that was only 8 months then of being in the gym and completing the photo shoot. And when I started the program, I was 93 kilo, and the photo shoot was 72. So 21 kilo within 16 months. And I don't know what my body fat percentage was, but it would
It
have
was
been
low. We'll overlay the photos.
it would have been fairly low. Um, but yeah, so that was probably achievement number one. Then had been, and again, I'm probably just gonna cover
No, it's
other
good. That's what I want.
bases,
Yeah.
but whenever so I had been waiting on a job proposal from the civil service, and I'd known from about the October time of 2020 that I'd been successful, but it took a lifetime, and I'd been waiting and waiting for this posting with the civil service. And I remember one afternoon in June, and I was actually walking to the gym, and I looked down and had a 7-minute voice note from Johnny. I said,
This is so not to hire someone, by the way.
I said, this is very peculiar. Maybe you would have had a 2 or 3 minute voice note, but 7 minutes, this is a bit
This is
extreme. So
long.
I remember walking into the gym, headphones in, and listening to this voice note, and it was basically you explaining that the business was now at the position that you were able to take somebody on full time, and you wanted to expand, and that you wanted to bring me in. And I remember listening to this and thinking about it, and yeah, I sort of took time. Christine came home from work that evening, and I had explained to her, or it was on her lunch, she came home, and I remember talking to her and said, that this position Johnny's offered me. And she's like, what do you think? You've been waiting on the civil service. I was like, I honestly don't know. And then that afternoon or evening, sure enough, after having been waiting for 8 months, email came through from the civil service on the same day offering me a posting in my most local office. So that was basically the best option I could have got from them. And I I I don't know if I've ever sort of told you this, but I remember how I decided to start working with you, and it was a bit of trickery by Christine and
I
a bit
hope
of
it wasn't the flip of a coin.
it's very similar, but I'll explain why that worked. So Christine had a salt shaker, and she goes, I'm going to hold the salt shaker in one hand. If you pick the salt shaker, that's to go and work with Johnny. If you pick the hand without, that's the civil service. And I was like, this is nonsense. That's not going to work. I want to, weigh this up, look at the pros and cons. I'm very detail orientated, and I want to have it all this way. And she's like, just try it. So I picked the salt shaker, which was to go with you. And I was like, yeah, but that doesn't mean anything. She's like, but how would you have felt if you picked the other one? She's like, because you're happy now that you picked that. If you'd have picked the other one, you would have been raging, and you would have been thinking of all the reasons why not to. Whereas there was no doubts whenever I picked that. I was happy that I had picked that. So it was a bit of mind games by Christine that led to that. And
It's unreal to think that though, 4 years down the line, and that's what it came down to. And it was how that you got the offer on the day that I had offered you. And rewinding to cover in short some of the stuff you said. So you went through this big transformation. You lost 20 kilograms. So for anyone that doesn't know, there's 6.5 kilograms in a stone. So 20 kilograms is a lot. That was over a 16-month window. You probably had transformed physically, but also mentally, because the mindset switches that come with that are huge. And then you had this big decision to make, which essentially was a risk at the time, because for context, I'd never hired anyone full time at this point. And this is, what year is this? This is 2021.
yeah,
2021. So Matthew's taking a big risk there and turning down a stable job that he knew that he would be in long term. for this opportunity. But it's an example of actually grasping an opportunity with two hands and going all in and saying, right, I'm going to do this, because there's always going to be risks in your life. And to achieve anything you want, you have to take a risk. You have to feel a little bit uncomfortable. And regardless of the decision that you were going to make, you probably thought to yourself, oh, well, this opportunity might never come up again if I don't take it now. And for me, I knew Matthew was going to be the perfect fit. I knew that I wanted him. And I was in the early stages of my business too. So I didn't know how to hire someone. I wasn't going to put out a job ad. I wasn't going to do any of that stuff. I had just picked one person that I wanted. And if Matthew had said no, I don't know what the plan would have been, or who would be here today. But I remember just sending that voice note, and I remember I'd mulled it over for weeks. And I was like, I didn't want the back and forth on a phone call. I just wanted to vent over a voice note. So that's why it ended up being 7 minutes. Here's where I'm at. Here's what I'm doing. Here's where the business is at. Here's where I want it to go. And I need someone there to help me facilitate that. And things have grew exponentially. It's changed everything, and it's made me step up as a leader. It's made me become a better coach, and it's had a big impact on the overall business. So if we kind of then move back into your transformation, fitness wise, performance wise targets. So you've got the 20 kilo that we covered. Since that, what challenges have you completed? Wins? He's probably done every challenge that's going, but tell us, like, in 2 minutes, all the challenges.
Right. 2 minutes. So I completed the Mourne Wall with a friend of mine. There was a group, it was split across 2 weeks, and it was for charity, but we set off in twos essentially, and myself and a friend of mine completed it in 7 hours 18 minutes, and out of the 160 odd competitors, we were the quickest of
Wow.
the entire field over the 2 weeks. That was one. That's 15 peaks, 22 miles. Also completed the Belfast Marathon the same year, later on that year. We did a thing, a friend of mine whose son has a very rare form of epilepsy. We kayaked the Ban River from source to sea, and without the exception of Loch Ness, essentially. That was a 3-day challenge. So we did that, yourself and I did the 24-hour walk for charity as well.
2 marathons.
2 marathons within that. That was tough going. The feet weren't in great shape off the back of that.
No.
There's a lot of blisters post that. I think we did the 5Ks in a day in each of the countries in the British Isles, which was both enjoyable and difficult. The lack of sleep made that tough. Equally, it was 25 kilometers within a 24-hour period, so it was tough as well. But it was good for us to do that in sort of help of a friend of ours, and again raise money for the Southern Area Hospice. And nice to sort of do it at all the football grounds. Obviously,
Yeah.
the four of us that did it, as well as the guy driving, we're all part of the same football club. So it was nice to have done that and been able to sort of incorporate football into it as well. I think that's pretty much, I might have missed something.
So there's a lot there, and I'm not saying that we can teach you how to kayak or any of those things, but that was based off Matthew becoming fitter, stronger. His mindset towards challenge had changed. He was more willing to take on these challenges, and that's why you ended up where you were. And if you were to pinpoint the single thing that led you to doing all that stuff, and we haven't prepped these questions, by the way, so this is just off the bat, so it's a tough question, but if you're pinpointing one thing that made the difference that led you to doing all of those things, what would it be?
I would say, especially initially, and as I said, I dabbled for 5 months before, with trying to do something, and even off the back of, months and years prior to that, I'd tried different bits and pieces, maybe went for a run now and again, But for me, it would have to be locked down to the accountability, especially as my during my time as a client. It would definitely be having the accountability there is what led me to then kick on and do the photo shoot, for example, which was the first sort of main thing that I ticked off. And I would say it was at that point accountability from that, then coming on board and working within the business. And, it was probably for that, it was a case of leading from the front and trying to, set a good example and sort of practice what you preach almost in that sense. Um, that helped me to work towards that. And I also find that, I know I'm giving you three different things here, but
No, it's good.
I'm also someone who is quite goal orientated. So for me, having that actual challenge or target to work towards is what motivates me and drives me. Whereas some people, that might not be the case, that, they might not necessarily want to go and achieve a certain thing. It might be, it's not a challenge based goal for them. There will be goals, but not maybe in the same way as what mine were. But for me, that was probably something that then gave me focus, gave me something to work towards in my training. And it was always in the back of my mind then, on the days where you don't feel me, all of days where we don't feel like training or whatever it might be. But that was always what sort of held me accountable then from that point was, I've got something to work towards. And it's something that we've spoke about as well, where if you share what it is you're going to do, that also helps to keep you accountable. Because if I've told you I'm going to do it, if I've told Christine I'm going to do it, if I've told, several people that I'm working towards this, that also helps to keep you accountable. And also you get the support from them as well, because they know that, okay, he might need to go for a 3-hour run this Sunday because he's training for the marathon, which is gruesome, by the way. The training for the marathon is, somebody actually said to me that the marathon itself is the training. The day of the race is just a victory lap, which I really enjoyed.
That's good.
But
And there's so many lessons to unpack there. Matthew's almost went through the journey. When we look at the fitness element or the training element of our program, he's almost done a lot of what we would encourage. So you go through this body focus period where you lost the 20 kilo, got in the best shape of your life, and now you've been able to sustain that and maintain that, and you haven't went backwards. Then you've thought, right, now I've achieved the body. It's about peak performance. It's about what is my body actually capable of? What challenge can I embark on that will show that it's not just a looks thing. It's actually you've built a body that can perform.
yeah,
And then it's then just consistently going through that journey, because the journey never stops. You haven't stopped training now,
no, still training now.
and it's still a big part of your life. So
Yeah.
it's almost encouraging the habit, and then 5-6 years down the line, you're still here, you're still doing it, you're still operating. And that, a lot of people looking at this podcast, listening to this podcast, will think, I would love to try something, I would love to be a client someday. And if you were to go back to when you first joined the program, day one, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently?
That's a good question. There's probably not a lot I would change. As I said, when I first joined, I took everything out of it, or tried to take as much out of it as possible. Potentially the one thing I would change would be, I would have maybe expressed my gym anxiety a bit earlier and tried to overcome that, knowing what I know now, that it's not this big scary place where everybody's going to be looking at me and saying he's not doing that right, or why is he doing that as his workout. Everybody's focused on their own thing really when they're in there. And that was something that prior to that I didn't expect. I expected everybody to be all eyes on me in the gym, which it's really not. Nobody's overly worried about what anybody else is doing. So that was maybe one of the things that I would look at. But ultimately, not much. If I could go back earlier than that, I would probably tell myself to have done it a little bit sooner. I wouldn't have gone through maybe the sort of that phase of, lacking in confidence prior to joining, and being unhappy and not having the self-confidence or body confidence. Um, that came then off the back of joining the program, and sort of where we went from then. So it would probably be a case of telling myself that I should have started that little bit sooner. As I did sit in the fence for a long time and didn't, I knew I wanted to do something, but just didn't really want to do it or didn't know what to do. So I think that would have been, um, the thing that I would have told myself would be prior to actually having starting and saying to give it a go a little bit sooner rather than just treading water at a point that I wasn't happy with for a long period.
Exactly. And so many people didn't take learning from what Matthew's just said. You can sit in the fence for months, even years. We had someone join last week and told me that they watched our stuff for 2 years and only bit the bullet last month. And that fascinates me because people consume our stuff. They've seen all these results. They've seen it for the last 9, 10 years, and they probably thought, I would love to do that, but I wouldn't be able to do it, or I don't have the time, or I can't dedicate time to it, or would it even work for me? And that person's different. And it's just a case of actually reaching out and sending that first message, because this could have happened sooner for you. It it happened when it was meant to. You've achieved great things. It's fine, but you can sit in the fence for a long time before actually doing anything. And you've worked in the program for over 4 years now. You've seen how we operate. You've seen how we impact clients. You've seen the behind the scenes of everything we do. A lot of people watching will not understand what it is we do. So what's one thing that, so you were a client before, what's thing that you've learnt about the impact that we have or the work that we do that you maybe didn't realize was happening when you were a client?
Yeah, and I think this is something that potentially a lot of people don't factor in or don't realize has the potential to happen. And for me, it was the change more so in my mindset and outlook on things as opposed to actually the physical changes. And when I first joined as a client, I never really thought much into the mindset side of things. I wanted to lose a little bit of weight, and that was really the height of it. But um, you talked about how it became a habit then, and that's why 5.5 years later from starting, I am still going to the gym, and it's about creating those positive habits, and that's probably been the biggest thing for me is those sort of small changes over time. Like, it wasn't drastic changes, and like another thing that I've said before is the build up to the photo shoot. Maybe I'm the only one who's ever done this, but I had a takeaway every Saturday night in the build up to a photo shoot and was still in the best shape I've ever been in my life. Um, Whereas prior to that, you would never have believed that's possible. You'd have never have realized that that can be achieved while still being able to enjoy yourself. And that's probably something that I gained massively across the first 6 months, was just a bit more of an education around what was happening to my body, why it was happening to my body. And I had been to gyms before, I'd been to trainers before, and I normally got a result, but it wasn't long lasting. I wasn't actually educated as to why that was happening. And once I stopped training with them or whatever happened, it was literally the yo-yo. It was back to the old habits, back to the bad habits that led me to, feeling unconfident in my body and lacking self-confidence in general. So for me, I would say gaining that education was a massive thing, and not something I expected to happen when I came into the program. As I said, I just wanted to lose a bit of weight and didn't really want to know any of the ins and outs of it. But I think that's something that if you ask anybody who works with us, will say that this is something that they will take with them and it'll last them a lifetime. They'll have the tools to kick on and, you know, live a happier, healthier, and more energized life rather than bouncing back and forth and yo-yoing and coming in. And that's something that, like, we know that, we won't work with people forever, but we give them the tools that they can carry on what they've learned, you know, and take that with them forever.
Exactly. And we see ourselves as the final solution to the person's challenge. It's not you dip in for 6 weeks, then you go away, and then you go back to old habits. It's we take people on a journey. The average person will stay with us for around 2 years. And initially that starts as a 6 month journey, and then they can push on further should they choose to do that. But we want to be the final solution. We want to be the solution that actually sticks. And Matthew's hit the nail on the head. He's still crushing it 6 years later, or five, whatever years later it is, and you're still showing up consistently. And there's probably questions where we want to look at the behind the scenes dynamic between you and I. We obviously work together every day, not directly side by side, but we work together and we're in conversation most days. What do you think works well for us as a team, and how we can produce, because our output is huge. There's only two of us, but I would argue that we have the output of 4 or 5 people just between the two of us. So what do you think works, and how do you think that happens?
Yeah, I think having that open line of communication is key, and that's probably what helps us to thrive better than most. Um, Equally, for me, there's not that fear that you would potentially have in some workplaces if I've made a mistake or I've not done something in a correct way. I'll say to you rather than panicking and thinking that, oh, I'm gonna get eaten alive for not having done this right, or I've not done. So I think that open line of communication. I think we also plan quite well, and as I said earlier, I'm quite methodical in my thinking, and we do on occasion, you know, we'll meet up once a month or what it might be to sort of see what the next month looks like, or what the next quarter is going to look like. And I think that planning helps a lot with what we do and how we can stay organized and, you know, on top of everything that needs to be done. As a, you know, there's only the two of us, as you've said. So I think having that structure and that plan, as well as that open line of communication, massively helps us with being able to provide the best service that we can to the many people that we help. And you know, we're in contact with a lot of people across the week, but we always sort of keep that open line of communication to each other to ensure that we are covering all the bases across the weeks and months.
Exactly. And I think that's huge. And for us, communication, and I always wanted to be in a position where someone could openly, honestly communicate with me and say, hey, look, this isn't going so well. Could you help me with this? And that's one thing that we're really good at, is communicating regularly. But also, we're different personalities. Matthew's a really organized person. I'm kind of a little bit disorganized, but I have all these ideas, and then I throw them at Matthew and he's like, oh, well, we can do this. We probably not in a position to do this. And that's where I've probably done well, is I always have these new ideas. I'm always ahead of the curve. I'm an innovator in what I'm doing, but sometimes Matthew's like, hey, look, maybe we should just keep it like this, or maybe we should do that. So it's having that, and also it brings organization into all these ideas I have. So then we can organize them into, all right, well, that will happen in this month. This will happen in this month. We're at this retreat this weekend, and Matthew's organized that, because it's hard for me to do that because my main focus, so we have different roles in the business. My main role is coaching our clients. I'm there, I'm on the calls, I'm face to face with the clients, I'm with them. And then Matthew does coaching, but also the back end stuff that happens behind the scenes that maybe people don't see. I wouldn't be in a position to manage the workload on my own. So that's why Matthew's here. And it's great. And I really enjoy it. And I think for me, it's good to be honest about challenges as well. So people that maybe lead a team, I have a small team. It's Matthew, Ross behind the camera, and I have challenges. So for me, sometimes I struggle to stay on top of everything because you've got a lot in your mind, and then I'm forgetting about, oh, is Matthew okay? Has he got everything he needs? So I'm constantly caught up in my own world, and then sometimes I forget, oh, this needs to happen. I also think having hard conversations is difficult, and sometimes something that I avoid as a leader in my space. Even all my life I've kind of struggled with that, and it's good to be open about challenge, but I think I find that difficult. So now you've got this person that relies on you, and maybe we need to change something, but I kind of avoid the conversation for a while, and then it's something that I personally need to work on too. And then obviously as well, we've become great friends over this time because we speak every day. Matthew was a groomsman at my wedding in July. We're really close. He manages me in football on a Saturday, and that's the running joke that I only get to play football because Matthew works in the program. That's the reason I get to play, because I'm not a very good footballer. But I I think all joking aside, it's that dynamic as well that we have. Is we've got friendship, and then we've got work, and then we've got football, and it's a different dynamic, which can also be a challenge because Matthew tells me what to do on a Saturday, so he's my manager then, I'm the manager during the week, and then it's just that dynamic, and then we're friends at the weekend, so it's kind of like this weird dynamic that wouldn't happen in a lot of businesses, but I think we've kind of got it down to a T, but it also can be a challenge because then maybe Matthew doesn't want to give me a Balkan on a Saturday because then is it going to run into Monday, and then I like don't want to do something. So it's a funny dynamic, and probably a dynamic that's never really happened in any other business. How do you find that?
Yeah, I think you've basically nailed it there, that it is very unique, and I'm sure there's not a lot of, I'm sure there is somewhere, but there's not a lot of businesses that have the same sort of scenario or predicament that we can be in, where you're my boss Monday to Friday, I'm your boss on a Saturday, Sunday's the only day we get off.
Yeah, and sometimes we're together for some
Yeah,
reason.
true. Um, but yeah, it's a unique dynamic, but I think it's one that we make work very well and quite well. Again, the likes of, it's something we probably found, I wouldn't say awkward, but probably found um strange at the start. But I think that, again, open line of communication, we, and there's not very many occasions, but if we do have a go at each other or whatever on a Saturday, it never leads into a Monday. It's not something that ever sort of blows into Monday. Equally, if we've had a challenging week, it's not something that ever goes into a Saturday. Um, so yeah, I think that
It,
it's unique, but it's
and it's so unique because whenever I voiced it out there, I forget how unique it actually is, and that it's such a strange dynamic, but a great dynamic. And you're obviously football manager at a great level, and he gives me a game on a Saturday for whatever reason at left back. There's no one else that has a left foot. But um, how does football management carry over into like work, home life? What have you learned from being a football manager that's helped you in work and at home?
yeah, and again, the organizational side of things massively helps when it comes to both the football management and a work side of things, and equally, I try and be as open, and I think one thing that's actually sort of linked well across the two, especially on the coaching front, is that I find myself as a person quite approachable. So I would like to hope that in a football setting, if somebody is having it hard or they're not happy with something maybe that I've done in terms of team selection or whatever, that they can feel that they can come and have a conversation with me. And equally, if they're struggling with something away from football, that I feel like they would be able to come and speak to me. And another thing that probably comes to mind is actually being able to develop people, players, whatever way you want to look at it. And I started coaching as a 21-year-old as an assistant manager for our third team. Then after a season went to our as a manager in our third team. 3 years then following that with our reserve team, and now I'm into my fifth season with our first team. And there have been some of the players that I had at our third team are still playing for me now with our first team. So being able to develop them and sort of bring them along on that journey, and I think that's something that is really, you know, been able to gel between both my career path and then actually with the football coaching as well, has been the development of people and being able to, go along on that journey with them while they develop. So I think that's something that sort of works both, or works well, within both. Um and having that open level of communication, as I said, along with the ability to hopefully be approachable, and be someone that people can speak to and confide in, and as well as being open and honest. I think um, that comes with, as we've said, where I would express if I have any challenges or anything. I think that's something that works well, is being open and honest with you know players on a Saturday, with yourself if I'm struggling with anything, and giving honest feedback, both in both with clients who potentially need that honest feedback one way or the other. If they've been doing really well but they don't accept praise, is telling them that they've been doing well, or if they haven't, if they've been off the boil for a minute, there might be a reason why that has happened. So being able to go and have those sort of honest conversations with people, I think is something that sort of works well across both roles, sort of.
Definitely. I think we're gonna land the plane here. That was epic, awesome. I've been meaning to do this episode for ages. We speak every day. We could easily have done it before now, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was useful. And I also wanted to publicly thank Matthew, because Matthew's been an incredible addition to what we do. All of our clients get on really well with him. He has an impact on me, he has an impact on them, and he has an impact on the business. And I appreciate what you do for me inside, outside of work. So thank you. And if you have any questions on anything, Matthew said he's on Instagram, he's on Facebook. I'm sure you wouldn't mind someone firing you a message to say hello and ask the question. And other than that, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the next episode. Good man.
Cheers. Good stuff.